Welcome to another Penson's Performance Therapy Rehab video. In this we're going to look at lateral pelvic tilt. So this is where the pelvis becomes out of line on the transverse plane. So you might feel that one hip has got slightly higher or lower than the other, or it might come into shoulders where you get that hip hike. So one of your shoulders feels or looks like it's lower than the other one. It might also feel like you have a leg length discrepancy. Whilst that is possible, it's more likely that your hips are out of line. And this can cause all sorts of knock-on problems. So it can cause problems in the hamstrings, the knees, anything in the back, and even in the shoulders as well. And it's actually surprisingly common. So a lot of people have this, they might not know it, or they might not know, and that's the reason that they have problems. A good way that you can check this yourself, if you haven't already been in for a treatment and we've said this is what you have, you can find what's called your iliac crest, or your iliac spine. This is the bony bit, so if you come in here, you can feel the bony bit right at the top of your hip there. You have one on either side, so if you find those, and you can either mark them out or take a picture, and you should find that they're level. If they're not level, the chances are that you've got one higher than the other. That is lateral pelvic tilt. You can also do this from behind, so you can look at your shoulder height, and then you can find again the top of that iliac spine or the bony points that you can palpate, and you're just looking for unevenness. So it might be that your shoulders are slightly dropped, or you might find that one hip is higher than the other. All of those are good ways to check yourself to find if you do have that lateral pelvic tilt, especially because we sit so often. Again, do spend the same time sitting on with even pressure through each bum cheek. It's very unlikely. We do tend to sit a little bit tilted. So things like QLs, adductors, and glute medius become out of balance, and that's what causes lateral pelvic tilt. So for this video, we're going to focus on those three muscle groups. We're going to try and stretch them, and we're going to try and strengthen them, make sure both sides are nice and even, and our pelvis is nice and level, prevent injury, and also improve or create better performance of the body. We need a little bit of equipment for this. So I have 2 kettlebells of even weight. I've got a foam roller, but you can adapt that, and we'll come on to it when we use the exercise. I have a wobble cushion, which we'll use in slightly different ways. I have the band as well. So this one is quite a long one for doing banded walks. And I've also got the side of a bench, but if you're doing this at home, you can use something like a chair or the side of your sofa. And again, once we come on to that, I will show you how you use it. We're just going to be doing adductor curls on that. To start with, we don't need any equipment. We're just going to be using our own body weight. So we'll focus on the glute medius, and then we'll come into the adductors, and then we'll go to the QL, which is around the back. So to start with, we just want to start to loosen each side off. It's a good way of finding differences. It might be a good way to find which side is the tightest side for you and maybe needs a bit more focus on. So to do this, we're just going to go into the seated position with our legs flat on the floor, and then going to bring one leg up and over the opposite knee, and I just want to cuddle that into my chest. So to start with, I'm going to go straight towards my sternum, and I start to feel that in where the glute medius is, just on the side of that glute there. I'm then going to slowly just push that across towards the opposite shoulder. As I do that, I feel the stretch slightly intensify. And I'm not going to hold the first one for too long. Then I'm going to swap over, so right leg or right foot over, and then just squeeze that one into my sternum. And straight away, I feel that one is a little bit tighter. And then I'm just going to ease that one across towards the opposite shoulder. Again, not holding it for too long to start with, and I just want to rotate through those, just allowing the muscle to ease off as we do it. Next time I come into it, going to squeeze a little bit harder and just increase the stretch and hold it for a little bit longer this time. And then swap back over onto my right side. From here, I'm going to go straight onto my right. I'm going to bring my knee up into my chest and just catch my leg or my ankle over my opposite knee. So just lateral rotation with my right leg here. And then just start to rotate that knee out. And then swap over. So leg down on the floor, ankle up and over my right knee. And then bring my right leg back in towards my glute. As I do that, my knee drops out, my left knee drops out, and I feel that stretch on my left hip. And again, just move the knee around, just increasing or changing the range of motion there on the angle. And then swap through the both. Second and third time should feel a little bit easier, so you can go a little bit further with the stretch. From here, I'm going to go straight into pigeon pose. So again, it's lateral rotation of my hip. So I'm just going to bring my left leg forward and down and across, and drop my right leg back and then just drop my body weight down towards the floor. So try and get my hips nice and low. If I can with the front, I'm going to get my torso a little bit lower just to increase the stretch around my hip here. And again, I feel that in a very similar position. I also get a little bit into the hamstring and the adductors here as well, which is quite nice. Try and relax into it, breathe as we go, and just feel your body happy with that movement. Swap your legs over, so bring your right leg forward and through. Try and get your leg nice and square, and then again, drop your body down. A few deep breaths and relax into that stretch. You can move the angle, so just come up and then come back down with your body. From here, we're going to start to engage the muscle and start to strengthen, again, using one side at a time. So I'm going to go onto all fours, and I just want to do a donkey kick, but I'm going to go out to the side. So I'm trying to keep my core nice and tight, and then I just want to go straight out with my leg. So just abducting, taking my knee away from the center line of my body. And as I do that, I feel the squeeze again where that glute med muscle is. So my glute med is just working quite hard to pull that leg forward. You can go with a little bit of leg extension as well to get the glute max kicking in. And I'm trying to keep my lower back and my pelvis nice and level as I do that to make sure I'm only engaging that glute med muscle. Don't want too much lumbar rotation. You might get a little bit, but really try and squeeze from the glutes. Do the same on each side to start with. So do 5 on each leg and swap over. And just notice any differences. So is one side a little bit easier than the other? Is one side less likely to engage, or you find it a little bit harder to engage that glute med muscle? Again, it gives you good clues to which side might be the side that's weak and which side might need working on. From here, I'm going to take my band, I'm going to come up onto my feet and just stand on the band, feet shoulder width apart to start with, depending on the length of your band. So with this one, I just want to cross it over and I want to pull up, and we're just going to go into banded side walks. So slightly bent with my knee, and I'm just going to nice and controlled going out with my left leg. So again, abducting that leg, using that glute med muscle. And then I'm going to come back the other way, focusing on my right side. Try and when you're bringing your left leg or your following leg to match it, try not to let the band pull it back in like that. Try and do it nice and slow and controlled. Just getting that eccentric movement into the opposite glute med. Do the same on each side. So do sort of length of your corridor, your front room. Try and do 5 or 10. And then come back the other way. Again, to start with, we want everything to be the same, just to focus on which side is weak, which side do we need to focus on, or do more reps maybe. You can also, the more you come into hip and knee flexion, the more you're going to focus on using that glute med muscle. So try and get nice and low. We're also engaging the adductors here as well, which we're going to come on to in a minute. And again, back the other way. From here, we're going to go back onto the yoga mat, onto our sides, and we're going to come up into side plank. So squeeze up, try not your hips drop, nice and tight with your core, and then just get that body up. And all we're going to do is just hold that for 5 seconds. Keep breathing through out, and then come back down. You can just roll over. For the sake of the camera, I'll swap sides. And then again, pushing up onto my right side, nice and tight here, so no glute drag, not letting your hips drop down. Keep breathing and hold for 5 seconds. And again, swap over. We're going to repeat twice on each, so 10 seconds in total for both sides. If you feel like you can go a little bit longer than 10 seconds, then do, but focus on good form, a nice strong position, rather than going for a long period of time. And then once more on the other side. We will also be using this movement slightly adapted towards the end of the routine as well. Again, push up, nice and firm, and hold. Tight with the core, tight with the glutes. We're using our QL quite nicely here as well. So just starting to work everything as we come down. The last one for our glute med, and this is where I use the wobble cushion. If you struggle to use the wobble cushion to start with, you can do it without. So I'll show you without, and then I'll show you with. And all it's going to be is a reverse lunge, and we're going to drive up onto one leg. So the glute med stabilizes our hips. So by doing this, we're having to stabilize quite a lot. So to start with, just effectively into a split squat or into a reverse lunge. So we're going to go back, down, try and focus on keeping the front leg nice and stable, and then we're going to drive up and squeeze up at the top. Try and keep your balance when you squeeze, so you shouldn't be falling off balance left or right. So again, down, up, and drive up. If I do that facing the camera, you'll see what I mean with my knee. So as I come down, I don't want my knee collapsing in, so I'm keeping my knee out, and then driving up, trying to stay nice and balanced. We're going to do 5 on each leg. Again, a little bit wobbly there. Up, nice and slow and controlled. You might feel that you wobble a little bit, that's fine, but you try not to put your opposite leg down as you do this movement. So really focusing on getting that left glute med for this one, firing nicely. So one more. Really good for balance. So again, when you're walking, your glute meds are stabilizing that hip or your pelvis, so that's what you want them to be doing for this movement. To really advance that, you can go onto the wobble cushion. It's a lot harder, so even just standing on the wobble cushion like that, again if I face the camera, you'll see that my knee straight away is starting to work a little bit harder, and that's all coming from the glute med. So once you get good at those reverse lunges, you can start to do it on a wobble cushion. Like I say, it is a lot harder, and it works that glute med a lot harder as well. So a good movement to do, but something to progress onto. So again, same movement, back down, and then driving up, trying to keep our balance as we do it. So again, I'm not wobbly here, just as it's harder on the wobble cushion. And to start with, it was rubbish. To start with, maybe only try 3, because that is a lot more difficult. But something to work on, something to progress it into. From here, we're going to then move on to the next muscle group that's involved with lateral pelvic tilt, and that is the adductors. So to start with, just going to go into this split knee or frog position in yoga. So feet together, try and bring them back in towards your pelvis as much as you can, and then just drop your knees down. You can use your hands or your elbows just to squeeze that a little bit more. And again, just relax into it and feel your body comfortable with that movement, and just allow your knees to drop a little bit more. And then bring them back up, and then just reset. So go into that position again. Then we're going to come up onto one knee, and we're just going to drop our right leg out, and then just squeeze back. So drop your weight back onto your heels, and then move your body weight and take that forward. So there's different adductors. So you've got brevis, magnus, and longus. So you're just trying to hit all of those different adductor groups. You also have sartorius and gracilis in here as well. So just by moving forward and back, we're going to target all of those adductor muscles. Okay, keep moving forward and back. We can also move our legs, so moving our leg forward and round gets the same thing as well. So then again, out of my left, I'm just going to drop back and then forward with my body weight. And you can just feel that slightly move within that groin area or the adductor area as we hit those different adductors. Okay, we're then going to do this is where I'm going to use the wobble cushion in a slightly different way onto our back, and you just want to place the wobble cushion between our knees like that. To start with, your feet are going to be on the floor, and all you want to do is squeeze your knees in just as you squeeze on the foam, on the wobble cushion. So I'm just squeezing with my knees. So it's isometric, there's not a huge amount of movement there. And then I'm going to take the weight off of my knees, or my legs, and again squeeze. Try and squeeze evenly with both legs. So if you do have imbalances, you'll feel like you want to squeeze more with one leg than the other. So just try and make sure you're really focused on squeezing evenly. If you're struggling to do that, you can literally just squeeze with one into your hand. So doing one at a time, just to make sure that your strengths are even on each leg. You can then drop your feet all the way down. So they're flat on the floor, but again with the wobble cushion between them, and just squeeze there. So with our legs straight this time. And again, do 5 on each, have a little rest, and then do another set for 3 sets. The next exercise again is quite advanced, so it's quite a progression, so you might not be able to do this straight away. So if you have something like a chair at home, make sure it's nice and stable. What we're going to do is place our top leg onto the top of the chair, and then our bottom leg wants to be underneath it. Try and get your legs so both legs are nice and straight, and then you're just going to contract your right adductor to let your left come up and match it. So effectively into a side plank, so squeeze up, and then we're just going to bring our adductors up and meet our feet together. Again, quite difficult, so if you struggle to start with your leg a little bit lower, so you've just got a smaller range of movement. And then again, swap over, so now top leg, which is my left leg now, into that side plank position, and then I'm just squeezing up to bring my leg up and meet it. And again, we're just going to go for 5. To start with 1 set is fine, just to get the movement correct. For here, we're then going to move on to the last muscle group, which is the QL, so the quadratus lumborum, which is the muscle that effectively joins the ribs to the pelvis. So between here and here, we have one on each side. When we sit, these tend to pull with different tensions, so really important to even them out, stretch them and strengthen them in the side way. So to start with, we're going to come onto our backs, and then we're just going to go into the side lying position, so knees bent and to the side, and then bring both hands out in front of us like this. From here, we're going to do with our top hand, my left hand in this case, just bring it up and round, watch my hand all the way, so follow it with my hand as I come all the way back over. I'm trying to keep my knees together on the floor here, so I don't want my knees to start creeping up, just to get that nice movement into the QL and thoracic. Follow my hand all the way over. I'm just going to do this 3 times, nice and slowly, and feel the stretch as I come over. And then I'm just going to swap over, and again, following my right hand now, all the way over. If you want, you can just hold it so when your back is flat on the floor, so just in that position, you can just hold that for a second. And again, nice deep breaths, allow your body to relax into that movement. From here, we're going to come up onto our hands and knees again. Hands forward of our head, and then just drop your body back down into that thoracic stretch. And back to neutral, and then we're going to bring our hands round to the side and try and drop your body straight back down. And by doing that, you should feel that more. So my hands are out to the right, and I'm feeling that more on my left QL, so the side of my lower back. And then to neutral, and out to the left. And now I'm feeling it in here. Okay, and then again, if one's slightly tighter, you can focus on that and go back to that. From here, we're then going to go back into this side plank position. This time we're going to add a little bit of movement just to emphasize what the QLs are doing. So into side lying, and then I'm just going to come up with that opposite leg just for 3 reps. And again, I'm trying not to let my hips drop down, so nice and strong here. And then swap over to my right side, and for 3 reps, trying to keep my nice and tight in my core and in my hips. And back down. And I'm going to go onto my back, and then come up into the glute bridge position. So knees slightly out, squeeze up with my glutes, and then one at a time, I'm just going to kick out with my legs. And when I swap over, I'm trying to keep my core and my hips nice and tight. So I don't want my hips to be rocking and rolling, really nice and tight. So almost no movement at all when I'm swapping over. And we're going to go 5 on each leg, so 10 in total. And you can repeat 2 to 3 sets. The last movement we're going to do is farmer's walks, and this is where my kettlebells come in. So make sure the weights are nice and even. To start with, you don't want the weight to be too heavy. And we're just going to repeat reps using both, and then single-handedly as well. So literally, if you're doing it in the front room or in your corridor, just nice and really tight, holding the weight nice and evenly. So when I'm doing this, I'm trying not to let one side drop down. I want to be nice and tight, hips nice and level. And I'm just walking backwards and forwards, nice and controlled, slow movements. I'm really making sure that I'm engaging both sides of my QL, make sure that my hips are straight. Next thing to do is to put one weight down, and we're going to do it single-handed. So obviously, naturally, if I was just to let my body relax, I'm going to go like that. So when you see people carrying one bag of shopping, they tend to walk like this. What I'm trying to do is make sure my hips and my shoulders are level as I'm walking. So I'm engaging one side of my QL more than the other. And again, just reps up and down, nice and controlled, really squeezing that back, keeping those hips level. Do the same with on both sides. So if you go out, depending on how long you're walking for, do sort of 5 reps on each hand and then swap over. Again, really focus on keeping your hips nice and level as you do so. So you don't want to see one hand coming out as you're letting the weight drop you down. So nice and level. And you can repeat that. You use the weight to make sure it's relevant for you. You don't want it to be too heavy to start with, so you want to make sure your hips are nice and level, but you also want to feel your back working. If it helps when you're carrying one weight, just put your hand on the opposite QL to what the weight's in, and you'll feel it nice and firm, feel it working. And that is everything. There are lots more exercises to do. Those are the ones that we find are the best. So work your way through those videos. If you want to pick out 1 or 2 from each section, but make sure you're working each muscle group. So the QLs, the glute medius, and the adductors, and make sure you're doing single leg stuff to stretch and strengthen. Make sure we're nice and balanced with our pelvis. Hope you enjoyed watching that video. I hope it helps. Hope you enjoyed the exercises. Let us know how you get on. Leave a comment below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel to check out more rehab videos from us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.